Robbie believes that snails are smart because they have grown hard shells to prevent themselves from getting hurt. Shona cooked Aberdeen Angus burgers, and we sat down to eat around 6 o'clock, which was as late as Robbie could stand. The conversation was about a holiday that would start quite early to take into account the young participants. Robbie and I will put on our red McGregor kilts, and when it all starts, all three of us will be there around 7 in the evening. Robbie knew that, at the beginning of the evening, there would be a clown performing magic tricks to entertain the children, while the adults drank and chatted. We didn't talk about how long we would stay because everything depended on Robbie's well-being. Scottish country dancing is a wonderful invention that ensures that everyone has the opportunity to dance and interact with a wide range of different people. In other countries around the world, similar or comparable social dance formats exist, such as round dances, polkas, or line dancing. In a small place like Lomagandi, almost everyone dances along with everyone else, and this evening was no exception. The dance party began with the children trying out lighter dances, mostly with the help of their parents and grandparents. Robbie's favorite was the Dashing White Sergeant, which he learned at school. Together, we formed a family troika, energetically dancing around the hall, forming a group of 6 people in each circle, with the next troika approaching us. Dancing with Robbie, we must have looked like we were doing well, but I found it difficult to maintain the facade of a happy family. Despite what she had been doing that morning, Shauna showed no signs of worry or anxiety. She beamed with a smile and gladly accepted compliments on our talented son and how well the 3 of us danced. I kept checking to see if she could find an excuse to go and talk to Callum McDarrell. But other than wishing him a happy birthday and giving him a card and a gift when we first arrived, she studiously ignored him. Neither I nor anyone else could suspect that anything was going on between them, and I began to wonder if this was just a one-time occurrence. As expected, Robbie began to tire as the evening wore on. Shona looked after him most of the time while he played with a few of his little friends, including Malcolm. I thought she was expecting me to take Robbie home so she could have a chance to flirt and dance with Callum, but I was surprised to learn that she had arranged a sleepover for Robbie and Malcolm at our house. Around 9:30 p.m., Shauna and Maggie took both babies to our house. About half an hour later, Maggie returned to us. She said that she and Shauna would take turns, and each of them would babysit the boys for an hour, while the other had fun at the party. This meant that Shauna would be back in about an hour, when Maggie relieved her of babysitting duties. I danced with Maggie and some other women and tried my best to act normal, whatever that meant. The music made conversation difficult, but I was fine with it, and ended up standing at the edge of the crowd, sipping a beer and listening to a group of fiddlers playing various reels, struts, and jigs. Although I usually looked in the direction of the group, I also kept an eye out for any signs that someone knew that my wife was being watched behind my back. True, I could not be sure of this. A couple of times I thought some women might know something. 1 or 2 looked my way, but I decided they were just testing me. Callum McDarrell has done his fair share of dances, grandmothers, aunties, and friends of. His mother took turns dancing with the birthday boy. The men took turns buying him beer whenever the woman let him rest. No doubt he was well-mannered and popular, and under other circumstances I would have bought him a drink in turn. But now, there was no such opportunity. While waiting for the beer I ordered at the bar, I happened to be next to Callum's father, Dougal. I didn't know if he knew about Callum and Shona, but here was an opportunity to solve a small part of the mystery. "You must be proud of your son, Dougal," I said, smiling. "Yes, I guess so," he replied. "Tell me, is Callum named after his grandfather or someone else in the family?" I asked. "Yes, Callum is his maternal grandfather. Then his middle name will be Dougal, after you?" "No, Hector, after his paternal grandfather," said Dougal. "How interesting," I replied. "Are these good gentlemen with us this evening?" "Maybe take a shower," he answered. "Both live far from here. Callum's grandfather emigrated to Canada many years ago, and Hector's grandfather lives with my sister and her family in Australia. It's a shame they missed out on a good dance party, but it can't be helped," I said, ending our short conversation and paying for the beer. Dougal unwittingly provided me with evidence that Shona and Callum's morning meeting was unlikely to be spontaneous, impromptu. Sure, the C on the gold ring stands for Callum, but it's safe to say the W stands for Sean. In my opinion, the intertwined letters could mean cuckolding whore. My mood did not improve when my wife reappeared a little after 11 o'clock. She looked around the room and gave me a quick wave before heading straight to Callum McDarrell. Is this really the moment they've been waiting for all evening? At first glance, all she was doing was taking her turn to dance with the birthday boy, but it seemed to me that the wide smiles of anticipation on their faces could not be mistaken. He immediately accepted her invitation without hesitation, and soon they were spinning around the dance floor in each other's arms. If I had not been attentive to these telltale signs on the faces of others, I might not have noticed anything, but the spectators, knowing that something was happening, could not help themselves. While watching the dancing couple, many women, including my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, stole glances in my direction. They were undoubtedly amused by the thought of my wife dancing with her young lover and me not knowing anything. I put on a poker face and decided to go outside, only when Shauna and Callum were still on the dance floor after 2 dances. Someone must have suspected that I knew what was going on. As I stood outside in the dark, trying to recover from the thought that half of Lochmandy seemed to know that I had become a cuckold, Dougal came up behind me. "You don't look happy, Rob. What's the matter?" "Your son and my wife," I answered. "So you found out everything. Fiona thought you might have figured it out. Please don't make a scandal today. Fiona would like to be able to talk to you tomorrow morning about what's going on. Tell Shauna you have a little headache, and then come see us when she takes little Robbie to church. It is very important that you hear what Fiona has to say. Can I tell her that you will be with her?" He looked at me with concern as I thought about what to answer. "To be honest, I don't think it will do much good, Dougal. But I suppose I can wait until then. I'm not going to cause a scandal, as you put it. Just keep your son away from my wife. I have no idea how many people know about them, but it would be better if they didn't spend the rest of the evening hugging each other on the dance floor. This just rubs salt in my wounds, and I'm not sure I have the patience to bear it." "Thank you, Rob. I'll ask Fiona to talk to Callum calmly." I waited 5 minutes before returning to the club. Shauna was now dancing with her brother-in-law, Duncan. Callum was dancing with his older sister, Heather, a 22-year-old black-haired beauty who was next in line to become chieftain and was studying accounting and finance at the University of Inverness. When the dance ended, Shauna came up to me and gave me a big hug and kiss. She was still radiating happiness and clearly had no idea that I knew about her affair with Callum. We ended the evening by dancing together and then walking hand in hand up the hill to our cottage. I tried to act like everything was normal, and it helped that Shauna kept talking about how great the party was and who was there, and how they all said they really enjoyed it and the band was amazing and so on. I bit my tongue and simply interspersed her conversation with random remarks like yes or exactly. Maggie was happy to see us and agreed that Shauna and I would take both boys to church in the morning and Malcolm would meet his mom and dad there. Shauna checked to make sure the boys were okay, then went straight to bed, apparently falling asleep before I even finished my business in the bathroom. For some time I lay awake, thinking about what the head of the clan could tell me that could change the course of my thoughts. I was quite sure that my marriage was mortally wounded, and I believed that Lady Fiona was unlikely to be able to resuscitate it. There's no way to go back having sex with someone, and I really doubted that what Fiona had to tell me would save my marriage. The next morning, Shauna made breakfast and took the boys to church herself when I said I had a headache and needed some fresh air. As the devout inhabitants of Lochmandy entered the village church that Saturday morning, I was retracing the path to heartbreak I had trodden 24 hours earlier. Soon I was at the chief's cottage. When he knocked on the door, Fiona answered. "Thank you for coming, Rob," she said, leading me into the living room. "The rest are in the church, so we won't be disturbed. I've boiled the kettle, and we'll make us a cup of tea if you don't prefer whiskey." I wouldn't bother about a cup of tea, but it would be extremely rude to refuse, and I expected our conversation, even without getting off to a bad start, to be quite difficult. Fiona brought tea, and we sat opposite each other in 2 wingback chairs by the fireplace. I didn't know what Fiona wanted to tell me, so I waited for her to speak. "Let me start by saying I'm sorry you found out about Sean and Callum," she said. There was a hint of concern in her voice as she continued. "Can I ask how this happened? Did someone tell you?" I tried to control myself, especially in front of little Robbie and Malcolm. But to Fiona, my anger must have been obvious. "It doesn't matter how I found out, Fiona. No one told me, although many people seem to know, that your son raped my wife." "Rob, that's not all," she replied. "It's a long story, and I need you to listen to what I'm about to tell you. I will do my best to answer any questions you may have. The only thing I would like to ask is that you promise to listen to me before making any decisions. You can do it? Okay, Fiona. You can speak out, but I don't think it will change anything." "Thank you, Rob. I won't deny that Shauna and Callum had a close relationship. What you don't know is that Shauna is a gift. I don't mean that she is talented or endowed with some gift from God. I'm talking about the gift a woman gives to a young man when he comes of age." "Wait a minute, Fiona," I interrupted in amazement. "Are you saying that Shona and Callum had sex because it's some kind of tradition or rite of passage when he turns 18? "Yes, Rob, that's about it," she replied. "You see, the tradition of women giving themselves as gifts in the Magandhi Valley began after the rape of Morag McDarrell. Everyone knows the history of Morag, and everyone knows that after 1745, the women of the Magandhi Valley took over the administration of the valley. These women did everything they could to rebuild the community and ensure the prosperity of the valley. Yes, they hosted redcoats in their beds, but what most people don't know is that they also ensured that the young women of the valley would never again be at risk of being raped and murdered by chauvinistic young men with wild libidos. Let me get this straight, Fiona. Are you saying that it wasn't enough for the old sluts to just have sex with the soldiers? They decided to fuck the local youth too? Rob, you are deliberately distorting what I am trying to tell you. It wasn't like that at all. Women agreed to give each other to their sons when they turned 18 years old. A gift from an older woman to a younger man is a reward for his good behavior while growing up. The donated women were originally old maids or widows of men killed in wars. For many years, the men of the Magandhi Valley sought their destiny in North America, and there were always battles they could fight. They fought against the French, against the Native American Indians, against Santa Anna and her Mexicans, fought each other in the bloodiest battles of the American Civil War. In between, they joined the California Gold Rush, but there were almost no women with them. The 20th century brought even more terrible wars, which did not spare the men of the valley. The Boer War in South Africa was followed by the First World War, the Spanish Civil War, the Second World War, and the Korean War in the 50s. For more than 2 centuries, there was no shortage of unmarried women to give of themselves. So, if it is unmarried women who participate in this tradition, then how the hell did Shauna end up being given as a gift? I asked. All women in the valley are expected to honor tradition and be willing to be gifted. Today we are lucky that our men do not die in wars, but this means that there are few widows and single women in our community. Instead, gifted women are those whose husbands are often absent from home. These men may work on oil rigs in the North Sea for weeks at a time, or simply be in Glasgow or Edinburgh from Monday to Friday. The main thing is that the gifted woman is able to make herself available without disturbing family life. I think this whole thing is just an excuse for older women to enjoy illicit affairs with young guys, I told her. Not at all, she replied. Fiona, are you speaking from your own experience? Have you ever been gifted? I asked. I don't have to answer this question, but to calm you down, Rob, I'll tell you. The answer is yes, but that was many years ago and I won't tell you more. The gifted woman and her boyfriend should behave responsibly and keep their relationship as private as possible. Shona and Callum perhaps should have shown a little more restraint last night. So what you're saying is that Shauna said she was ready, willing, and able to have sex with Callum, but that they should have been a little more careful? Rob, it's not just about sex. Giving is done with care and tenderness. The courtship period lasts 3 months until the young man's 18th birthday. During this period, the couple meets as often as possible and gets to know each other, spending time together, talking about everything that's important in life, and about the young man's plans for the future. There is no sexual intercourse during the courtship period, although the couple may hold hands and kissing is permitted. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's no wonder my wife has been such a frequent visitor to Fiona's cottage over the past few months. She was dating Callum. But this is even worse, I said. You say that this is a full-fledged romance and not just quick sex. The only salvation could be that it was some kind of spontaneous, unforeseen event, some kind of one-time mistake. Fiona paused briefly, as if contemplating what to say next. I know it's probably hard for you to understand what's going on, Rob, but the relationship between Shona and Callum is not an affair, and it doesn't pose a real threat to your marriage. Callum needs to learn about women and relationships, and Shona is a wonderful woman who has taken it upon herself to help him do that. Of course, we all hoped that you would not find out that Shona is a gift, but you must understand that giving yourself as a woman is a long tradition in our society. She enjoys widespread support, and women who give are highly respected. Perhaps so, I replied. But who does it? Who is the matchmaker? Who decides which woman should be gifted? A young man can give preference to one woman or another, but the final decision is made by the clan leader, she said, looking me straight in the eyes. This is always a carefully considered decision, and neither the woman nor the young man is forced into a relationship. Let me guess, I answered, trying to control myself. Callum told you that he wanted to fuck my wife, you asked her, and she agreed? That's very rude wording, Rob, she objected. To put it very bluntly, that's how it was, but I can't think of a better woman than Shona to teach Callum about love, respect, and responsibility in the adult world. I don't agree, I said. All he learned was lust, disrespect, and thoughtlessness. Lust for my wife, disrespect for me, and damn the consequences. What about the risk of pregnancy? It seems like a high price to pay for a few moments of pleasure. It's up to the gifted couple to take precautions or not. Strictly speaking, this is part of the tradition according to which a woman gives herself unconditionally. Many of the Valley's children owe their existence to the gifts of their mothers, often in circumstances where women would not otherwise be blessed with offspring. For hundreds of years, these children helped populate this part of the mountain country. After the First and Second World Wars, for example, gift-giving gave some women children they would not otherwise have had because their husbands had died in those wars. So, Fiona, besides the occasional unlucky, illegitimate child, there must be other consequences for women given to young men. Not really. There were only 1 or 2 small problems, but overall the experience was very positive. Sometimes we intervene if it looks like there might be a problem. The last time this happened was when John and Mary MacDonald moved to Glasgow, shortly after you moved here. That's why they left. She was clearly very upset that she was leaving, and he couldn't wait to leave. Yes, I'm afraid she became too emotionally involved with the young man to whom she gave herself. She wanted to extend the relationship beyond a year. So, are you saying that she got more than just one time in the hayloft? Perhaps you don't quite understand, Rob. You see, giving is not just a one-time reward for good behavior during adolescence. This is an incentive to stay in the valley longer. Young men often don't know what they want to do with their lives. The endowment is fixed for 1 year or until the young man leaves the valley, whichever comes first. I was stunned. Are you seriously saying that Callum expects to have sex with Shona within the next 12 months? Please try to understand, Rob. Giving has eliminated unwanted sexual aggression from young men because giving women helps them become mature, confident, and well-mannered. Of course, there is physical intimacy, but during this time the young man will learn about women and relationships, and will then be emotionally better prepared to face the world. It may seem nice to you, Fiona, but do you really think I'm just going to stand by and let Callum continue to have sex with Shona? The cancer on the mountain will soon whistle before I let this happen. Look, Rob, I know you're upset, but try to understand that this is part of Shauna's legacy. As a woman from Magandhi Valley, she has no choice, and it won't last long. By all means, talk to her about it, but I would advise you not to take a hard line. An ultimatum is rarely a good negotiation strategy. Our conversation seemed to have come to an end, and I stood up. I have to go, Fiona. I listened to everything you had to say and tried to understand, but as far as I understand, little has changed. If anything has changed, it's for the worse. But thanks anyway for the tea and conversation. Fiona walked me to the front door. Don't do anything rash, Rob, and remember that you can always come and talk to me. Continued in the next video. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell so you don't miss the second final part. The link to the second part will be in the description of this video below. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one.